You're going to need a small Phillips head screwdriver and then a pentalobe screwdriver. It's the same size that opens up all of the iPhones. You'll need a pry tool and a suction cup. Put the suction cup close to the home button. Take your pentalobe screwdriver and undo the bottom two screws right next to the charging port. Place your suction cup right next to the home button and lift up with your finger at the same time, trying to put the pry tool between the frame and the screen. I found it a little bit easier to use a razor blade, as it was more firm, so it could slide down between the frame and the glass easier. Lift up gently and kind of pry them apart. Don't stick your tool in too far though, because there's a ribbon cable that you don't want to rip. Lift up gently between the screen and the frame. And you can see right here, that little ribbon cable, that's where the fingerprint sensor connects to the main board. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my little pry tool, reach it in there, and it's kind of like a little latch. So you twist your pry tool up a little bit, and it will unlatch on one side, and it will come apart. Here in a second you'll see as I lift up the little ribbon cable connector and unsnap it, the top part of the latch comes off, which is fine. It goes back on pretty easily as well. When I say easily, I mean you're going to hate every second of it towards the end of the video. Right here on this bracket there's going to be 4 screws. Take off each of the screws and then set them in the location where they came out, and then put the bracket right next to them so remember where they go in, because they are different sizes. There's the bracket, and then right here we have different ribbon cables. I'm just going to unsnap them just like little Legos. This is for the earpiece and camera. This one right here is for the LCD, and then this one's the digitizer. Not that you really need to know what those are, but they unclip and unsnap just like that. Now here's the screen. We have the earpiece on this side with all the cameras and the sensors, and then we have the home button with the fingerprint sensor on the bottom. I'm going to show you how to take apart that first. Undo the little screw. There's a little super tiny metal piece. It should stick to the screw as you unscrew it, as mine did. Just remember where that goes and the location of it so you can put it back in just in case it does pop off. Then there's 2 screws holding on the home button. There's a little metal bracket, so take that off. And then the home button itself is just kind of stuck on, like with sticky tape type stuff, onto the frame of the phone. So you can take any kind of pry tool. Like my razor blade, I find that it is pretty stiff and sharp enough to get under it on these little tiny seams. Be super careful around these ribbon cables though, because if you rip one, you have to buy a new part. And I'm going to show you how to gently pry up around the home button. Just a little bit on each side until the whole button comes away from the phone. Very gently. Any parts for this phone I'm going to list in the video description below, so if you have any questions or anything like that, let me know. If you have a specific part you need, let me know, and I can usually find it pretty cheap for you. And there's the home button, and now we're going to take off the earpiece as well as the front-facing camera and light sensor. So there's the 2 screws on either side of the bracket there. And the bracket's kind of interesting. There's a little metal clip on the inside of the bracket that you have to bend just ever so slightly out so that the bracket will come off. So I'm going to bend that out, and then the whole bracket comes away from the phone. And you can kind of see what I was talking about with a little tiny clip right there. So it's very easily clips back into place when you're done. Anyway, once again, be super careful with all these little ribbon cables. Apple didn't mess around when they were putting them all into one component. So right here you can see I'm lifting up the connector for the earpiece as well as the light sensor. And then you can see the camera coming away as well in that same ribbon. cable group. And then the whole thing is kind of stuck down with the little grounding sticker onto the back of the screen. And so peel up on that very gently. Once again, you don't want to rip any of this stuff. The less you break when opening your phone, the better. That's what I always say. There you go. Now, it depends on where you buy your screen from, but you might also have to switch out the metal plate. There's just those 4 screws around the outside. Once again, that's completely dependent on where you get your screen from. I'm not going to do it on this screen just because it is super simple. 4 screws, pop it out, good to go. And I'm going to place the group of ribbon cables, camera, sensor, and everything back into place. There's only one spot for everything, so you just kind of got to position it. It does take a little bit to get everything in the right spot, but they only fit in one way, so it's pretty simple to figure out. Got it stuck back down onto the screen again. And then get the earpiece in there. Remember, the earpiece acts as like a little magnet. So let's say you're trying to pick up a screw with your screwdriver and your screwdriver is not magnetized. You can easily magnetize it on the back of the speaker. I'll show you how to do that once I get this bracket into place. So my screwdriver won't pick up the screw, so I touch it to the back of the speaker, and then boom, the screwdriver is magnetized and will pick up any screw. Almost too well, so I'm going to grab it with my tweezers instead and place it down into the hole. And screw it back into place. Same thing with the other screw. And you are done with the earpiece. So the home button, remember, this is where you need to remember what direction that little tiny metal bit was going in. Let's get the home button pressed down into place. Get the bracket over the top of it. And then hopefully your screw is still stuck in to the top of the ribbon cable, so you can just screw it down into place. I found that it was a little bit easier to hold it with my pry tool as well as the little screwdriver, like this. Finally got that thing screwed in again. And now to get the screen back on, I'm going to start with the digitizer ribbon cable. Going to clip that into place. Once again, just like Legos, it takes a second to position it right over the top, but once it's in place, you can just click it down. You'll hear a satisfying click with each connection. You'll see me struggle a little bit with this last one. It's hard to find out exactly where it wanted to clip in. And there we go. Grab your little bracket. And once again, you should have your screws laid out in a way that you can remember where they went. I'm going to screw each one of those back into place. Once again, any parts for this, the screen, anything else you might need will be listed in the video description below. And if you need anything else besides that, make sure to ask me in the comments or hit me up on Twitter, either way. Hit me up on Facebook, and I can answer any questions you have. Anyway, here's the fingerprint scanner cable that we're going to try to get back into place. You're going to hate this thing. It never wants to do what you want it to do. So I kind of positioned it in place with my finger, and then I have my pry tool that I'm just going to kind of press it in, just like little Lego snaps that we were playing with before. Get it in place, then I have the little hinged bracket that I'm going to slip down on top of there as well. And once you get it into place, you can press it down with your finger or with your pry tool. Once again, it just takes forever to get this thing positioned just right. You're going to love Apple. Anyway, that's what it looks like when it's in place. And then position the top of the screen in first, and then you can kind of snap up the edge of the phone. Make sure to press only on the edges so you don't crack the screen again. And then clip the bottom into place as well. And then at this point, I like to turn the phone on to make sure it's working. And then so I don't have to undo the bottom screws more than I need to. Looks like it all turns on, so I'm going to get those bottom screws screwed back into place. Once again, if you have any questions or comments or anything else, make sure to leave them in the comments below. Like this video if it helped you, and don't forget to subscribe. I get my hands on fairly new phones fairly quickly, so you can see